We now continue our look at Hume's philosophy of religion with Hume and the immortality of the soul. Before getting into his actual discussion of the matter, a brief refresher on the notion of substance. Now, for philosophers, substances are usually taken to be one of two things. One is, and this is the view put forth by people like Aristotle and Descartes, that a substance is an entity that can exist on its own. To use an example, you can think of an apple existing on its own, just floating in space. But the qualities of the apple, such as its color, size, and shape, those can't exist on their own. So you couldn't have just red. You can have red things, but not just red, and not just shape of nothing, just shape on its own. The second view of substances is that they are the supporter of properties. To use my usual analogy, you can think of them as being like a Mr. or Mrs. Potato Head. Think of the substance as the potato and the qualities that are held up by them as the pieces going into them. And so philosophers tend to see substances as either entities that can exist on their own, or supporters of properties. Now, getting to Hume's view, here's his view. He's going to take the soul to be a substance, to be stuff. And he thinks that it's difficult to prove the immortality of the soul by reason. And what he's going to offer is an argument by elimination, or more accurately, extermination. And as we've seen in previous discussions, this occurs when you would argue by saying there are only, say, 3 options that are possible. Then you show that none of these can work, therefore there are no viable options. And for Hume, the 3 types of possible arguments are metaphysical, moral, or physical. And spoiler, he claims that none of them work, and therefore he doesn't conclude that there is no immortal soul, but he concludes that we don't have reason to believe in it. He begins looking at the metaphysical arguments. So the soul, on the view that he is criticizing, is supposed to be an immaterial substance, ghosty stuff. And material substance is supposed to be such that it cannot think, that it is a non-thinking extended matter. So he raises up here kind of a stark argument against this notion of substance. He says it is both confused and imperfect. And one argument that gets developed by other philosophers, as well as Hume, is this. The only idea we have of a substance is an aggregate of particular qualities, and it is claimed that they inhere in, attached to, or supported by, whatever metaphor you prefer, in an unknown something, or in Locke's words, something, I know not what. And so kind of the first objection against, immaterial substance is the mystery argument. It's just weird. So he also extends this to matter, material substance. He says both matter and spirit are equally unknown, and he claims we can't determine what qualities are in one or the other. Then he turns to his cause and effect argument. As you might recall from the beginning of the discussion of human religion, his view of causation is essentially one of habituation. You have a alleged cause happen over and over and over again, and eventually a person gets habituated to expect that the alleged effect will follow. Now he thinks that you cannot determine cause and effect a priori, by pure reason, and you can only sort it out through experience. Not surprising, given that he is an empiricist. And he claims that there's no other principle, other than cause and effect, based in empirical experience, can tell us whether matter, by its structure or arrangement, is or is not the cause of thought. And abstract reasoning cannot decide any question of fact or existence, which is his view. Others, of course, like Saint-Anselm and others, would dispute that. But here he really packs in, quite a few arguments. One is the whole notion of substance, again, is mysterious, argues for that. Argues that we really can't sort out what is doing the thinking. And so he thinks at this point the notion of a thinking substance is problematic. But he presses on with more problems. Now, his next argument is an argument by analogy. And he compares spiritual substance to material substance. And he claims that if the spiritual substance, the immaterial mind, exists, he claims by analogy, nature uses it as she does material substance. So how does nature use material substance? Pretty much all the thinkers who believe in material substance accept that it's used rather like clay, to use the analogy. It's modified into various forms and then dissolved again, modified again, and it's used as a substance to compose various entities. So, as Hume notes, continuing the analogy, just as a material substance may successfully compose animals' bodies, a spiritual substance may compose their minds and be dissolved by death. Those claiming, he says, a mortal soul did not deny the immortality of its substance. So he's making the following argument here to sort of present it in a more concise and maybe slightly clearer manner. His argument essentially is that, okay, if we look at matter, the idea is that matter is effectively immortal. If we jump ahead and talk about, the modern view of physics, that matter is neither created nor destroyed, and so we could accept indestructible matter. But we don't think that because matter is indestructible, that the individual creatures, say like matter makes up a T-Rex, the T-Rex dies, and then, millions of years later, some of the matter makes up a squirrel, the squirrel dies, then it makes up something else. We don't think the T-Rex is immortal. It just so happens that the matter keeps on going. So Hume's argument is kind of an interesting one. He says if matter works like that, it's effectively indestructible and immortal, but we don't think that individual creatures are therefore immortal. Why think anything different is about the soul? So if the material substance can last forever but dissolve and change, and so, for example, that T-Rex doesn't keep existing, so the immaterial substance that makes up, if the T-Rex had a soul, that it too could just sort of, fall apart, be reused, and be the soul of a squirrel. And so the idea essentially is, if immaterial substance is like material substance, they both could be immortal, but there's no individual survival. So the mere fact that the matter that made up the T-Rex is still around today doesn't mean that the T-Rex is still going. And likewise, by analogy, even if it had a soul, the fact that its ghosty substance is still around today wouldn't show that the T-Rex is still going. Or so Hume argues. And his next argument is this. Whatever the source of memory and consciousness is, immaterial or material, Hume says they could lose their memory or consciousness. And so here's how he gives the following argument. He claims, which can be debated of course, that from the common course of nature, what is incorruptible must be ingenerable. And what he's saying here is claiming that if something cannot be destroyed, it also must be uncreatable. So effectively it must be around forever. This of course could be debated. There may be things that, cannot be destroyed that were not created. But he's making that claim. Now, he's not supposing a new interposition of the supreme cause, basically God, because he doesn't think that philosophy should do this. But what's his main point here, before we get sidetracked into that? Well, this is his claim. If we assume that what is indestructible must be ingenerable, must have been around forever, then we must assume this. If the soul is immortal, hence indestructible, it must be ingenerable. It must have existed before birth, and this is what he reasons. If its former existence before now did not concern us, neither will the latter. And so his view essentially is, well, you don't have any really concern about what your soul was up to before you were born now. Therefore, what's going on in the future shouldn't concern us either. Now then he brings up animals, and he brings them up quite a few times. It's kind of like asides, they just kind of hop in like a squirrel, popping through the window. And what he's doing here seems to be this. He's not going to try to claim the animals have souls. Rather, he's trying to argue against people who think animals don't have souls. So what he's kind of doing is this. Probably targeting Descartes. Descartes argued that animals don't have metaphysical minds. He thinks that they feel, but he argued that they don't actually have, souls. So what he's trying to do here, Hume that is this. He's going after arguing against people who think that animals don't have souls. And so what he's doing essentially is an argument by analogy. He's claiming, well, animals think, love, hate, will, and reason as people do, just less perfectly. And so we would have to accept that if the people have souls, the animals would have to have souls too, that are immaterial and immortal. But what he's counting on in raising this question, asking, are their souls also immaterial and immortal, he's sort of banking on the view of people who don't think animals have souls. So again, his strategy is, hey, you don't think animals have souls? Well, we have every reason to think that they have souls, the same reasons we have to think that people have souls. So if we reject that animals have souls, reject that claim, the same must apply to humans. So either animals have souls, or like humans do, or if animals don't, humans don't. And what a person would have to do, and what Descartes does try to do, is counter that. Try to give an argument as to why you can hold that animals don't have souls while people do. So that's the end of his metaphysical arguments for the immortality of the soul. Oh, and in case you're wondering, no, those are not all the arguments you could give for the soul. There are many, many more. So he really wouldn't succeed as the argument by elimination, because he only considers a couple arguments. So not really decisive. He'd have to kind of defeat all the good arguments.